preparing students for point work. That's what this video is about today. We're going to look at 3 different things: releasing tension, finding vertical, and finding the deepest intrinsic muscles of the foot so that it is a strong foot. Students aren't sinking into their shoes. So welcome to today's video. We're going to dive in with a little video that I'm going to share with you that I filmed in class with students, as well as a little explanation from me to you about what I'm doing and why, and some suggestions on how to teach it. So number 1, let's just take a look at the video now.
Pick it up, and then let weight and gravity extend the ankle, add the toes, do your bingo blotting, make sure you're vertical, and add the 3-dimensional curve. And roll down.
Okay, so we're back with me, and I'm going to share with you a little bit about what I was doing here. So you'll notice that the first thing we did is simply pick up the foot. Now that's different than what you have usually done with your students, I'm sure, of rolling through the foot. Now I'll tell you why I'm doing that. So this idea that I mentioned right at the beginning about releasing tension, we have a lot of reflexes in our body. I mean, I've got postural reflexes right now, reflexes in my neck. You've got reflexes right now helping you to sit upright. Now, not all of our students' reflexes are well developed, but if they're up walking around and not tripping on their feet, then they've got a reflex at the front of their shin that puts the foot into a bit of flexion, simply so that as you walk, your foot can, or your leg rather, can swing through and you clear the floor. You know, if gravity automatically just let our ankles and feet dangle every time we swung our leg, we'd be kicking the floor all the time. We wouldn't be able to walk. Okay, so we have this reflex. So that's what I'm tapping into here, is this concept of, can we make sure that we're releasing any tension before we add the work? I think a lot of times we work on adding work. We haven't looked at the tension piece first. Okay, so you just pick up your leg and you'll notice there's that flex. Then I ask them to use an image, which I'll come back to, and just releasing the front of the ankle, letting go of that tension at the front. Now the shin does need to be perpendicular to the floor so that the gravity dangle can have that happen. Next, once we've got that released, then it's time to add the muscle work, pointing the big toe. Now, because you've got your shin perpendicular already, and this concept of just reaching for the floor can now be done. You hear me say bingo blotter or bingo dabber, like this idea of just tapping the floor to check to see that the pad of the big toe, or possibly a second toe for a student with a longer second toe, touches the floor first, not a knuckle or any other, or maybe not quite fully pointed yet. Okay, so we've got release the ankle, add the toe, check that you're vertical, because you're going to want that in your point shoes, right? And those of you who've ever taught students who have tight feet, I know what we're always working on, right, to get them vertical. But if you ever taught students with those super high arches, bendy banana feet, you know that that's actually almost a harder foot, because these poor kids have to try to manage what they've got instead of just always working to increase. And so much in dance, working to increase is actually a little easier than trying to draw back what you've already got. Kind of like working with hyperextended knees is actually quite complex, or can be. So again, if you've got that student with that hypermobile foot, then working on the dangle and the reach to the dab will help them find vertical and moderate what that feels like, and the touch point. And then the final piece that you'll hear me talking them through is this idea of finding convexity across the front of the foot and concavity in the sole of the foot, so that the foot is actually pointing 3-dimensionally. Now that's a new concept I've found anyway for most students when I come in to guest teach. They've only been thinking of the point. They've never been thinking of the fact that the deepest intrinsic muscles actually help to put it into a 3-dimensional curve. So with that in mind, a prep thing that I suggest and that I do with most students, I bring my little bag of lacrosse balls. So they're hard and they're small, and when you massage your feet across them, particularly across the transverse arch, you're helping to mobilize, to give the opportunity for those muscles to create that 3-dimensional point. Okay, so let's look at the video again, and then I want to share something about the image in it.
Pick up the knee, high enough that the foot dangles, yeah. Then like a heavy icicle melting, let the ankle open through gravity, add the toes. Bingo blot so you know you're reaching to the floor vertical. And then add three-dimensional point, baby toe to big toe, curving at the front, and roll down. And let's do one more. Pick it up, and then let weight and gravity extend the ankle, add the toes, do your bingo blotting, make sure you're vertical, and add the three-dimensional curve, and roll down.
Okay, so now here's the imagery that you heard me say about icicle foot. And in fact, the students in this video in particular, they refer to it now as the icicle exercise. So imagery is not just for, dynamics and putting a bit of motion or something behind a movement. All of that is great. I fully support it. I do it. I love it. But if you're not somebody that uses imagery yet for building technique, I highly suggest that's something you consider. And you'll see here why. So this idea of an icicle has two wonderful pieces to it. So I'm not always having to say two different things. It actually is a combined thing. So an icicle, what is an icicle? Well, an icicle is about something first, melting. Ooh, well, melting's a great idea for wanting to get rid of that tension in the front of the shin. So feeling the front of the shin melt, feeling heaviness, and then the heaviness and the pull of gravity helps to find vertical. So a icicle gets created its shape because it melted and it had the vertical pull. That's exactly what we want, to find that vertical on point. Melt and let go of the tension at the front of the shins that is so often there, which is normal, by the way. It's kind of a reflex. So we're working to sort of let go of that reflex, just like a head writing reflex. If I do this, naturally my head stays upright, or I could override it and go. So you'll notice if you're teaching side port de bras, oftentimes kids don't take the head. They do this. Well, they should take this, but they do that because they haven't been asked to override the reflex. Same thing here with point. Let's make sure we melt, hence the nice icicle, the front of the shin before we work the calf, so that we're not kind of working on both sides, creating more tension and work than we need, which I believe sends students down the road of chronic overuse injuries, which are really actually kind of tension injuries, such as Achilles tendonitis, for example. Okay, so the other piece was the vertical pull. So when I'm there with students, I would actually pull at, say, the base of their toes and help them to feel that dropping down, drip, drip, drip. And then again, the nice thing about icicles, if you want to refreeze, now you've got a strong foot. And then maybe I just melt the toes and go back to my strong. So it can kind of be a melt and a refreeze, and a melt and refreeze when I'm playing with that sort of 3/4 point to full point, or even just the edge of the box back up to fully on the box. Okay, so I totally encourage you to use imagery as part of your technique. And if you want to know more, please check in the description below. There's an intro to imagery course there for you, little mini course that's free. It's got a focus on posture and turnout, so check that out. And should you want to join the Radiant Dance Teacher email family, you will be sure to be notified whenever there's a new imagery course coming out. So for example, this icicle image is part of the winter imagery course. All right, so that's it for now. And I will finish once again showing you the video of it, just to refresh it again so you don't have to go back in the video. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that, and let me know how it goes. Please leave a comment below. And of course, hit that subscribe button, making life easy for you for when I share another teaching tip to you.
Pick up the knee high enough that the foot dangles, yeah. Then like a heavy icicle melting, let the ankle open through gravity, add the toes. Bingo blot so you know you're reaching to the floor vertical. And then add three-dimensional point, baby toe to big toe, curving at the front, and roll down. And let's do one more. Pick it up, and then let weight and gravity extend the ankle, add the toes, do your bingo blotting, make sure you're vertical, and add the three-dimensional curve, and roll down.